In addition to the 2.2 million residents that call the Las Vegas Valley home, we've also got about 150,000 hotel rooms and 40 million annual visitors. When we look around at the neon and see the fountains and the pools and the people on the Las Vegas Strip, you'd naturally assume the first myth we discuss is true, that resorts use a large portion of our water resources. It's false, however, and simply not the case.
Before I dispel the myth about resort water use, I want to dispel the myth about Southern Nevada water use. The truth is, in the 1920s, the state of Nevada got allocated 2% of the Colorado River. Within that small use of 2% of the allocation, resorts actually only use about 7% of that 2%.
Yes, 100 years later, Southern Nevada still makes do with only 2% of the Colorado River, and the resorts and pools you see make up only a small portion of overall water use in Southern Nevada. 6.9% in 2019 to be exact, and that portion of water is vital.
We employ 21% of the state's workforce, and we're the primary driver of the state's economy, as we all know. So the water we do use in our buildings to operate our resorts essentially enables the state's economy. It is the most precious resource. So we are very cognizant of that as MGM Resorts and do a lot every day to try and recognize the preciousness of that resource.
One of the main reasons that resorts account for a small percentage is because most resort water is used indoors. And in Southern Nevada, almost every drop of indoor water is treated and returned to Lake Mead. Any water we use outdoors, however, is lost. Reducing outdoor water use is the greatest opportunity for everyone in Southern Nevada to conserve. MGM Resorts and other properties along the Strip are doing exactly what the Water District and Southern Nevada Water Authority encourage, that's remove grass.
In the resort corridor at MGM, we've converted over 200,000 square feet of real turf to artificial. We've converted a lot of landscaping from more thirsty in terms of water to less thirsty in terms of water. So where we are today, the park, next to Park MGM, we use drought-tolerant landscaping. We're very cognizant of the species we've chosen. They don't need as much water. We've also got drip irrigation, so instead of a large volume of water, we can just use a tiny amount. And finally, we use these things called anemometers, which are basically wind detectors. And when the wind is high, you want to turn the irrigation down or low, so there's less evaporative loss.
This brings us to another myth. The water that supplies our beautiful water features, like the world-famous Bellagio fountains, comes from Lake Mead, our community's primary drinking water source. This is also false. What many of you may not realize is that many of the water features that MGM uses are actually powered by what they have underground.
Including at MGM, Bellagio fountains, and the park, are actually drawing water from well water. We've got a pretty plentiful groundwater aquifer in the Las Vegas region, and we're drawing from that aquifer for our water features.
In total, MGM owns 10 wells that they can pump from to supply many of their properties, such as the Bellagio fountains, water features at New York, landscape irrigation, and even for some indoor uses. That water is directly underneath the feet of our visitors and not from Lake Mead.
But when we draw from the groundwater aquifer, we're using less water from Lake Mead. So that is encouraged.
Other areas MGM Resorts have focused on to lower its water usage are low flow fixtures, even dishwashers.
You think about a resort the size of an area, 17 million square feet. That's a lot of dishes we need to wash. So we've been very cognizant of the equipment we choose.
The company has reduced its water usage per square foot by 30% since 2007. Its next phase is addressing cooling towers, which use water to cool indoor spaces.
There are many technologies now coming onto the market where we can explore how to further that reduction of consumptive water use.
So when the Water District looks at water conservation, it understands resorts power much of Southern Nevada's economy. But casino corporations like MGM are also partners in ensuring a sustainable water future for everyone.
In terms of the conservation goals that the region has and the state has, we're on the same team.